Imagine being home alone deep in the woods when a stranger starts calling your name from the darkness. What would you do? In this chilling true story, a friendly encounter at a gas station turns into a nightmare that will leave you questioning who's watching you and how far they'll go. Stay with me as the terror unfolds and the unknown lurks just outside your door. When I was 18, my parents took a week-long anniversary trip. My sister had already left, so I had to hold down the fort. My parents' property is surrounded by woods and a dirt driveway that leads to the road. The road is a quiet back road with equally sized properties running alongside it, all separated by a reasonable distance, giving it a very isolated feel. Everyone in town knows each other. You always see familiar faces at the gas station, grocery store, and bars, as I discovered a few years later when I started going there. Speaking of gas stations, this story begins one day when my parents were away. A black Jeep Cherokee approached the pump beside me at a gas station, filling my tank. A man with a goat came out, greeted me, and began filling his tank. Strangers greeting each other in this manner was common in that town. He locked his nozzle into the gas tank before walking around to my side of the pump and asking, "Excuse me, do you know how to get to the interstate from here?" I helped him to the best of my abilities. He took out a notepad and began writing down the instructions I gave him. Oddly, he used his cell phone more than everyone else. He thanked me and inquired whether I was from the area. I answered, "Yeah, I grew up here." He said he was from out of town but did not say where. He returned to his side and inserted the nozzle into the pump. He asked my name and said, "It's nice to meet you." I said, "My name is Kate." He replied, "What a lovely name," and entered his car. When I got in my car, I drove out first and then turned left to return home. I was only a few minutes away from turning into the driveway. I slowed down, activated my blinker, and turned right onto the property. At this point, I realized the car behind me was the same black Jeep Cherokee. He passed me as I entered our driveway. He took the opposite route I had advised him to take to get to the interstate. He didn't slow down as he passed, so I assumed he had simply forgotten the directions I had given him and gone the wrong way. I let myself in and went about my day. As I was leaving to meet my friends that night, I stepped outside, walked to my car, and heard footsteps nearby. As I previously stated, the house is surrounded by woods, which occurred in the middle of summer. I didn't look into it because many animals could have been involved. I just got in my car and left. When I returned home hours later and walked from my car to the house, a man's voice from somewhere in the woods said, "Kate." I got chills as I looked around, and in a panic I rushed to open the front door. I slammed it shut and sat on the couch to catch my breath. The neighbors knew my name, but the houses were not close together, and there was no reason for one to call my name without first identifying themselves. I decided to call my parents and tell them, and they responded that it must have been one of the neighbors, and that they would most likely knock on the door. I did not tell them about our encounter at the gas station. The following day, a Saturday, I spent the majority of my time at home. Later that night, I would meet up with my friends again. After getting ready, I went outside, and as I was walking to my car, I heard someone call out, "Kate," loudly and clearly from a short distance away. This time, I didn't wait a moment. I dashed back into the house and locked the door. This time, I called 911 and texted my family. After 2 cops arrived at the house, they used their flashlights to look around the property's perimeter before returning and telling people to call again if the problem persisted. I didn't feel any better after this. They didn't do much. I only went outside the following day when I had work. I was a server at a nearby restaurant working the late shift. I left the house in broad daylight, fearful that I would hear that voice again. Fortunately, I didn't. Maybe seeing the police car scared him away. After many hours at work, I was ready to get home and collapse into bed. I drove onto the property, parked my car, and walked to the front door. I paused when I heard the sound of footsteps again. However, it didn't sound like animal footsteps. I stood on the front deck for a moment, waiting, before that familiar voice yelled again, "Kate, don't call the cops on me again, cutie." I yelled, "You need help, you're sick," and let myself in. I called the cops again and they arrived, searched the perimeter again, and left. My parents told me to spend the night at a friend's house. I could not agree more. They would return the next night, so I would feel much safer being there. My friend Alex said I could stay with her that night, so I packed my bag and was ready. I checked the windows first to ensure that the coast was clear. I went outside, locked the door quickly, and dashed to the car. As I turned the key in the ignition, I heard something to my left just outside the driver's side door. A man in a face mask was attempting to open the door. I couldn't even scream. I felt like I was choking on air as I put the car into gear. He began hitting the glass with his elbow. I spun my car around on the grass and sped down the driveway. I turned up the road and didn't stop until I reached Alex's house. I cried the entire way there because Alex and her father were on the phone with me. He said he would have come to pick me up if he had known the circumstances. We called the police for the third time. Several officers returned to my parents' house to investigate, ensuring no windows were broken. One officer came to Alex's house, and I repeated what happened. This was likely the most action these cops had seen in a long time in this sleepy town. Fortunately, my parents returned home the following day, and I felt safe staying at home again. I fully believe the man at the gas station followed me home on purpose, scoping out the area, realizing I was alone, and, for whatever reason, toying with me until he attempted to pounce and grab me. I should not have given my real name, and I should have been more aware of my surroundings and noticed he was following me in my car that day. Some people are insane and have far too much time on their hands. This incident was a huge motivator for me to move out of my apartment a few months later. This was more than just a simple stalker, someone determined to break into Kate's life most terrifyingly. A chilling reminder that even a casual encounter could spiral into something sinister. If you were Kate, what would you have done? Would you have seen the warning sign sooner? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more real horror stories that will keep you up at night. See you in the next one, if you dare.